Epomaker is known for making budget-friendly keyboards with lots of functionality and value for the price. But this keyboard here, the EK75, takes a step upward in price. Is it also a step up in quality? Let's take a look. Before we dive in, I want to mention that Epomaker sent me the EK75 for the purpose of making a review. I was not paid to make this video, and Epomaker doesn't have any input on what I am saying. I do have a couple affiliate links down in the description for you though, if you were planning on picking up the EK75 and you'd like to support this channel. So, Epomaker has stepped into the entry-level custom keyboard market with the EK75. Now, actually, this is kind of like a combination between a true custom keyboard and a mass market keyboard. It's got some things in common with each. From a mass market standpoint, you can't choose from different plate materials or different PCBs, and it comes with some things pre-assembled. From a custom keyboard standpoint, this is a kit, so it's not fully assembled. It's got an all-metal case that's quite heavy. There's no backlighting for the keys, and you do have to supply your own switches and keycaps. Now, Epomaker sent me their Jade Blossom linear switches and this Ancient Egypt themed keycap set that they call the Temple set, as well as an Aviator USB cable, so we'll talk about those as well in just a bit. Before we get into pros and cons or any more details of the EK75, let's go over the features and specs as well as the build process. The Epomaker EK75 is a 75% custom keyboard with 82 keys and an ANSI layout. There is not currently an ISO layout available. Construction is all aluminum for the case, and the dimensions are 355 by 159 by 43 millimeters, and the weight is 3.96 pounds or 1.8 kilograms, and that does not count switches and keycaps because they are not included. Connectivity includes Bluetooth for 3 devices, 2.4 GHz, and USB-C wired. There is no backlighting, but the top left corner has an LED light bar that provides a small amount of ambient light, as well as indicating the wireless connection status. The battery capacity is 3000 mAh, and although Epomaker doesn't provide an estimated use time, without any backlighting to drain the power, it should be good for at least a couple of weeks. The EK75 kit comes with a polycarbonate plate and hot swappable PCB compatible with 3 or 5 pin switches. Stabilizers are included and are the PCB mount screw-in variety. Switches and keycaps are not included in the kit. The EK75 features QMK firmware and is VIA compatible. The EK75 kit is available on Epomaker's website for $149 in a white or black color option. Building the EK75 kit actually begins with disassembling what was a partially assembled keyboard. So we'll remove the top of the case, then we'll pull off the plate. And the PCB mount is actually already connected to the battery and the daughter board, so we'll disconnect that. Now we can start with the stabilizers. We're going to install the stabilizers by screwing them to the PCB from the bottom. And then we're going to go ahead and lube our stabilizers with some Krytox 205. Want to get a nice thin layer around all of those. Now notice there are 2 different thicknesses of foam for the gasket mount. The thinner layer goes on the top of the plate and the thicker layer goes on the bottom of the plate, so be sure to put those in the proper order. Now switches are going to hold the plate in place with the PCB, and then we will just throw on a couple keycaps to test out the stabilizers and make sure we don't have to make adjustments. Now it's time to install the rest of the switches and then the keycaps. There we go. Quite a bit of bounce there with that gasket mount design. All right, now let's talk about some pros and cons of the EK75. First up, we have great build quality here. This is, like several steps up from some of the Epomaker keyboards that are more value budget friendly, like the TH80 Pro, which is also a 75% keyboard. that goes for about $89, maybe $99, depending on whether it's currently on sale or not. So all around, definitely just a step up in terms of the build quality. Also, the gasket mount design here provides a lot of flex and bounce in the typing feel. It's always great to have that more flexible, softer typing feel for longer typing periods because you get a little bit less fatigue. The polycarbonate plate is nice and I think the right choice, honestly, for this. It adds a little bit more flexibility and a little bit of a deeper sound. Another pro is, of course, having QMK firmware with VIA customization. This is not something that you get on Epomaker's more affordable keyboards like the TH80 Pro and TH80X, which I have reviewed previously, as well as the RT100. One interesting feature of the EK75 is that you can actually use VIA over the 2.4 gigahertz connection. It's not required that it's only over the wired connection. However, there is a different base profile that you need to upload into VIA if you're going to do it over the 2.4 gigahertz. Epomaker provides both the wired base file that you need and the 2.4 gigahertz one on their site. I'll link to where those are in the description if you're looking for them. Another pro, of course, is just having the wireless connections. Oftentimes with keyboards that get into this style where they're more of like the custom keyboard with the all metal build and the customizable parts, a lot of times they are wired only. And switching between them is very easy. It comes pre-programmed in the firmware that you just do function Q, W, and E for your 3 Bluetooth, function R for your 2.4 gigahertz, and function T for your wired connection. Also, your Mac and Windows modes are pre-programmed as a key command. So you've got function A for Windows and function S for Mac to swap between the layouts without having to build those layers yourself. Another pro would be having storage for the 2.4 gigahertz receiver. This little slot with the window cover over it, it's actually magnetic as well, so it kind of stays in place when you've got the receiver in there. Another pro would be the stabilizers that it comes with are pretty good quality. Oftentimes I found that included stabilizers are not the best. Usually the bars might be a little thin gauge, like a little flimsy, easy to bend, but actually these are pretty nice. And lastly, I will just say overall, I think that this is a good price for the quality and the functionality of what you're getting here. $149 for the base kit, but keep in mind, because you're gonna have to provide your own switches and keycaps, you're probably gonna get up into that $200 price range, maybe $180 to $200, depending on what type of switches and keycaps you buy. So it is gonna wind up in a similar price range as the Q1 Pro. We'll talk a little bit more about that comparison in just a few minutes. Now, in between the pros and cons, let's just talk about the extra parts that Epomaker sent me to finish the build here. So they sent me the Jade Blossom 53 gram switches. They're pretty nice. They have a deeper sound than the Flamingo switches that I've used before. Those are both linear switches, but 53 gram is the heaviest switch you can get in the Jade Blossom. So if you like heavier than that, you'll have to look elsewhere. You'll need a different switch. If you like lighter than 53 gram, they do have 2 other lighter weight options available in the Jade Blossom linear switches as well. Overall, I do find them to be pretty smooth and enjoyable. When it comes to the keycaps though, I have to admit these are not my favorite. Epomaker, in my opinion, makes some pretty nice quality keycaps, and I would say the quality of these keycaps is similar to what I've come to expect from Epomaker in terms of the thickness, the texture, the quality of the keycaps themselves is good. These are just not my favorite in terms of the legends. They're a little bit too bold in my opinion, because if you look at especially some of these special characters above your numbers, some of them are so bold that you can't even tell what they are, and I just don't particularly love that look. The font's a little bit heavy and too bold for my liking. The one thing I do want to point out, if you were interested in buying this specific keycap set for this keyboard, it actually doesn't work all that well with the particular layout of this keyboard. Over here in your nav key area, the EK75 is pre-formatted with your delete key up here in the top corner. However, this keycap set doesn't come with a delete key that is the correct height for the function row. So that meant I had to use VIA to remap the delete key down to one of the rows where I actually had a delete key that would fit. Otherwise, I'd have this weird short delete key up here in the function row. Now, let me just mention this aviator cable that they sent me as well. In terms of quality of the connection, it is nice quality. The black coloring or the paint job on it, it seems pretty durable. This does not seem like it's going to be flaking off or coming off easily from disconnecting and reconnecting like you see with some lower cost aviator cables where this paint job will start kind of chipping off. The quality overall is nice, but there's one thing I feel compelled to point out, and that is the smell. There's like this chemical smell to it, and it's been several days since I took this out of the package and I can still smell it. When I first took it out of the package, I could just smell it when I walked into the room. I'm not sure whether it's the cable material or the paint job. I'm not sure what's giving off that smell, but oh boy. be ready for that if you buy one of these. Also, just to be clear, the EK75 does come with a USB cable. You don't have to buy the cable separately. All right, now let's talk about the cons here. There actually aren't that many, and some of them are pretty subjective and may not matter to everybody. So first of all, if you wanted backlighting, it doesn't have that. Now, that's not common in true custom keyboards. Most custom keyboards actually don't have full RGB backlighting. That's more of a mass market keyboard thing as far as commonality. But if you wanted that, it doesn't have that. It does have the little LED light bar here in the top left corner, which has your status indicators for your connection, things like that. You can also toggle through some different modes where it just cycles through some colors, but that's the only lighting you're gonna get with the EK75. Now here's a con that I should probably call this more of a neutral thing than a con. So the battery is 3,000 milliamp hour, which is not terrible, but that's also not large by today's standards. However, because it doesn't have full backlighting, you're not drawing all of that power for a full set of lights here. So you shouldn't have a problem going at least, 2-3 weeks. It's decent. I would place it kind of right in the middle. To me, at this point, it's getting to be a con when you don't get more than 2 to 3 weeks of life out of a wireless keyboard battery, because we know it's possible. It would just be nice to me if keyboards like this came with a battery that could get you, like over a month of use without charging. Another con that may or may not be a con for you is that, like pretty much all custom keyboards that have a solid metal heavy-duty case, there is only one typing position. There's no adjustable feet here, so if you don't like this typing angle, then you're kind of out of luck. Now, here's another con that is pretty subjective. In terms of design, when it comes to the design of these keyboards, you either like it or you don't. It's very subjective. The only thing that I would point out is, the LED light bar is nice, but in general, in my opinion, the most interesting thing about this keyboard is on the bottom. It's got this cool kind of rose gold colored little bit of metal weight in the center here. That's just an accent. That's something a little different, but you're never gonna see that in the top of the keyboard. I mean, well, let's be honest, it's relatively mundane except for the LED light bar. But again, all of that's subjective. You either like it or you don't when it comes to the design. And that's really it. I don't see any cons here. I haven't experienced any that were deal breakers or things that were just really frustrating in my time using the EK75. I think you've got all of the pieces here for building yourself a really nice keyboard. So overall, do I recommend the Epomaker EK75 kit? Well, if you're in the market for a 75% mostly build it yourself, then yes, I do recommend checking out the EK75. If we compare it quickly to the Keychron Q1 Pro, it's got the QMK firmware, your VIA customization. The build quality of the case is honestly just as good. It's got an additional wireless connection. You've got 2.4 gigahertz because the Q1 Pro doesn't have that. They both are gasket mount with a polycarbonate plate. The only thing the Q1 Pro has that this doesn't have is the full RGB lighting for all of the keys. So if that matters to you, the Q1 Pro does have that. The Q1 Pro costs $199, while the EK75 kit costs $149. However, once you add your own switches and keycaps here, you're gonna be up at pretty much around the same price as the Q1 Pro. So when it comes to those two choices for an all-metal gasket mount 75% keyboard, it pretty much comes down to personal choice there because they have a lot in common. The only advantage really here is the 2.4 gigahertz connection, and the advantage for the Q1 Pro is the full RGB lighting if you like that. So that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you think of the EK75. Let me know if you picked one up yourself and how you built it out and how you're liking it. If you are interested in picking up the EK75, I do have a couple affiliate links in the description for you if you'd like to support this channel. Thanks everybody. See you next time.